In this lesson, we'll cover skinning techniques. Now, the techniques we'll take a look at are pretty standard. It's just a matter of going in and blocking in our weights and then refining them afterwards to smooth out any rough areas until we've managed to come up with something that looks nice and polished. But if we approach this right, we can get done with this process much faster. Now, before we start to take care of that, let's go ahead and take care of another parameter that we'll want to pay close attention to, and we find this underneath our advanced parameters rollout. Let's go ahead and expand it. That parameter is bone effect limit. So for game characters, we tend to keep this value here pretty low, and this is essentially what tells us how many bones can influence a given point on a skinned mesh. So you can see it's up pretty high. For game characters, it's a good idea to stick with a range of 4 to 8. 8 is the new standard for next-gen gaming. But still, we want to kind of keep this much lower than 20, and this is also that we can get some great performance out of our game. If this is up too high, we might notice a bit of lagging, and that's if we have painted that many influences. So if a point has about 10 to 12 influences, well, that's when we might start noticing issues. You can imagine if you have a game of several characters and they all have a very high bone effect limit, well, then you can run into a bit of trouble. So to be on the safe side, we can go ahead and have this value set to 4. Now, does that mean we need to change that value for the eyes and for the teeth? Not at all, because we haven't painted that much influence. Only one bone is influencing those objects, so we're good to go. Alright, so let's say we start to block in our weight next. We'll go ahead and head over to our paintbrush options. So take a look here. We can have the strength set up to be pretty high. We'll start with the value of 100%. You could also take a look at my brush profile, which is a hard brush, so that we can, again, just block in our weight. You might even stick with this type of brush. You don't necessarily have to change it, but if you did, you might work with the profile next to it, which is a way of smoothing out your deformations. You'll also notice that we have this paint blend weights option that we can use to smooth out our work, but I tend to not use it because in most cases it doesn't quite give me the results that I'd like. Don't notice too much of a change using this at times, so I tend to just stick with the options here. So I'll go ahead and work with the hard brush. Let's take a look at our brush size. Right now it's set to 0.005. I'll go ahead and enable the brush. We'll turn on edit envelope mode, click on paint weights, and take a look. The brush radius is a little too small right now. I might go ahead and increase this to about 0.03. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Much better. Okay, so we're ready to get to work. Now it's good that we have the head influence selected first because we'll actually want to start with an influence like that. Since it's going to drive a majority of the head, we can go ahead and start by blocking in a majority of our points to this bone object. And then we can work our way from the brows all the way down to the mouth and the jaw and get those weighted in. I'm not going to cover everything because by the time we work on the brows and a few areas on the lips, you'll have an idea as to how to take care of the other sections. Really straightforward. Okay, so with the head bone selected, we know there's a few ways we can go ahead and select the influence we'd like to work with, either from our bone list, or if we were to disable the brush here, we can go ahead and just grab the envelope that we'd like to paint to, right here in the viewport. But with the head selected, we'll go ahead and grab our brush and we'll start to fill in our points. And I'm not too concerned with the opposite half because we could always mirror those weights across, so we'll take a look at that. So I'm just filling in weight, 100%. We know that the red areas mean that there is 100% weighting, and yellow means that a majority of the weighting is going to the bone that we are painting to. Blue means that there's little to no weight. And if we could still see the texture, chances are we need to go ahead and paint that in. Alright, so let's go ahead and fill in the air. Just go ahead and fill in these spots. Go behind the head and take care of these points. Alright, great. And then if you need to, when you get to tighter areas, remember you can go to your brush size and you can start to decrease that size to whatever you need. So as we start to paint around the neck, it might be a good idea to go ahead and drop the size. but I'll keep it at 0.03 for now. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and start filling this in a bit more. Great. So we should be about ready to go ahead and mirror our weights across. I like to do that from time to time. And this is just so we can quickly go in and finish our weighting. So once we are satisfied with 1/2, might as well just go ahead and mirror across those weights then. You have to do it anyway. Unless you want to take the same amount of time painting the opposite half, which chances are you don't. But if you have the time, well, why not? Well, because it's a waste of time, that's why. Especially when the Mirror Weights tool works so well in Max. Alright, great, so this looks pretty good. I'll now go ahead and turn off the brush, grab the neck, go back to the brush and start to fill in weighting here. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at our mirroring tool. So we just have a few points to weight around the neck. Alright, great. So this looks good. Let's say we go ahead and test out the mirroring tool. I'll turn off the brush, and you'll find mirror parameters right underneath our brush settings. Let's go ahead and enable mirror mode, and take a look. When we do, if you look closely, we can see blue verts and we can see green verts. The green verts are on the right side, and they're really small, but if you look closely, you can see them. And then the blue, of course, are on the left half. So what this means is that since we were working on the left half, we want to transfer those weights over to the right, so we can go ahead and use this last option here, paste blue to green verts. Of course, if we painted on the right half, we'd want to use the option before that, paste green to blue verts. So let's go ahead and use this last option to transfer our weights. Now if we were to go ahead and deselect, just clicking away from the mesh, so we could just take a look at those weights that have been transferred over. You can see that it's done a wonderful job. I'll go ahead and turn off mirror mode, and I'll go ahead and grab the head influence, so you can see how much time this saves us. Alright, sweet. So this is when we can go in and start to work down the face, starting from the brows. We'll go in and grab the envelope. We'll grab our brush. We'll keep it at a value of 100%, but we'll probably want to drop our brush size maybe to about 0.005. That will work out well. And I'll go and close out of our options, and we'll get to work blocking in the section. And then once we're finished, we could add some animation. So we're just painting to the points that should be fully influenced by this bone object, and even mostly influenced, because we can smooth out those weights much faster. Alright, so we're just about ready to add some animation. If we alt-click, we can remove weight that way. So if you accidentally paint a point that you do not want to paint to, just go ahead and alt-click. Alright, great. So this is a good time to start moving that bone object so we can check our progress. Let's go ahead and turn off skin mode. I'll go to wireframe mode to grab the brow bone. Go back to shaded mode. And now, on frame 0, let's go ahead and turn on auto key. We'll go ahead and scrub over to frame 20. And we'll just go ahead and bring up the bone object. I might even turn off angle snap so we can get some finer movement out of that bone. So I'll go ahead and undo that back, just to bring that back down. Press the A key to turn off angle snap. And again, on frame 20, we can go ahead and just bring up the brow a bit. And already it's starting to look very nice. Alright, so we don't have much to do to clean this up. Let's go ahead and select the face. We'll turn off auto key, and we'll go back to our paintbrush. So this time, we'll want to work with a strength that is very low, let's say about 0.05. Now, we can start painting influence to the head bone to kind of smooth out some of these points that are very harsh. And it's as simple as that. You can see how much better our deformations are looking. And the fact that we've added animation means that we can get to these tighter areas that kind of get overlapped when we bring them too high. We can go ahead and just drag on the track bar until the point where we can see those spots that need to be smoothed out. we could start to paint a little bit more. So now as we start to scrub, take a look at how much better that looks. Great. And now this is a back and forth process, so we want to now grab the brow bone, go back to our paintbrush, and now we'll add influence coming back to this bone object. So we'll start to kind of smooth out some areas here closer to the procerus. We don't want to paint too much influence here because we want a nice crease as the brow comes in so it looks natural. And if you are ever having trouble figuring out how your weighting should look, remember you can refer to your own face. You can have a mirror nearby and you can kind of test out your deformations that way. Make some funny faces along the way too. Everyone loves funny faces. Alright, so we'll go ahead and paint a bit more, start scrubbing, just taking a look at our progress. That looks nice. Alright, great. How about on the opposite side of the brow? Maybe we have a few points that we can smooth out here. So I'll go ahead and start to paint some influence. And I might even add some influence on the points above that we did not paint, just to smooth this out a bit more so it's not so harsh. Just clicking a few times should suffice. Alright, sweet. So there we have it. This is looking great. Now, here's what we can do. We can test this out by going in, grabbing that bone object, and just rotating it in more than just one direction, because that's what counts. The brow is not going to be animated in just one direction. So let's say we go ahead and grab the bone object and go back to textured mode. We'll start to kind of rotate that around. Since we added animation, it might be a good idea to turn on set key mode. That way it will allow us to snap back to the animation once we start moving the track bar. Since we just want to kind of test things out. This looks great. Look at that. Awesome. Now he's upset in no time at all. Alright, great. So that's basically going to finish up our work for the brows. There might be a few areas to touch up, but not much at all because, I mean, as you can see here, the weighting looks great, and we did not spend too much time getting this type of result. Fun stuff. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and drag on the track bar to snap the bone back to the animation. Once you're finished, you can go ahead and grab the bone that you've animated, head back to your skin pose on frame 0. Then you can go ahead and Alt, right click, and choose Delete Selected Animation to wipe out all animation on that object. Then you can go ahead and grab the model, go back to skin mode, and then mirror your weights across. Sweet, so now, if we were to go ahead and take a look at the weights on the opposite side, I'll go ahead and grab that bone object. You'll notice that we get the same result. Let's go ahead and start rotating that around. Notice how much time that saves. Sweet. Alright, now, I'd like to point out just one more area that might seem challenging, but honestly the steps are the same. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lips. What I'd like to do is go to the hidden layer and hide its contents, just so we can focus on our envelope object. So it looks like one of those has been added to that hidden layer. Let's go ahead and take a look. I'll bring it back. Yep, that most certainly is true. I'll go ahead and grab the envelope object on the lower lip that was hidden, and I'll go ahead and add that to the skeleton layer. Now we can hide the hidden layer, and we're left with just our envelope objects. Alright, so the process is the same. We'd go in, let's grab the face. We don't necessarily have to add animation just yet. I'll go ahead and start by blocking in our weights. So back in skin mode, we can go ahead and grab the influence on the lip. You'll see that the radius is initially pretty high. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and collapse all of them down to 0 for each envelope that's tied to the lip so that they don't become a distraction. So we can go ahead and select our envelope point, go ahead and find our radius parameter. Here it is, underneath Edit Envelope Properties. Now when we go ahead and right click, you can see how that collapses it down. So we'll do that for both points until we no longer can see that envelope. So now we can just go in without any distractions and fill in this area. I'll go ahead and find the brush. There it is. I'll check the settings, set the strength back to 1, and then we can start to fill in our weight going to this point. And I'll go ahead and grab all 3 rows because we want to keep volume. Alright, so let's go ahead and make sure we go ahead and paint in all 3 here. And then we can turn off the brush, go to the next envelope, again collapse it down, grab our envelope point, right click on the radius parameter to collapse it. Sweet. And now we can go in, grab our brush again, and start to weight to this section. Again, filling in our 3 rows. So let's go ahead and test this out. We can grab the jawbone and start to rotate. I'll go to wireframe mode. And we'll go ahead and now start to kind of rotate this just to take a look at our work. And honestly, I mean, the results look great. We will have to refine a few areas here, of course, but you can see how we're starting to get some influence in the lips now. How cool. And then another thing you could do, of course, is go ahead and grab that envelope object and start kind of shifting that around, and that'll give you an idea as to how your control looks. Sweet. Pretty fun. Alright, so that's basically the process. Something else I'd like to show you before we close this lesson off is how to save out your weights, which can save you a lot of time if you have done your weighting process already and you need to, let's say, go back and change a few of your bone objects and then reapply the skin modifier. Well, you'd want to get back to that same weighting that you spent so much time on. Let me go ahead and grab this jawbone here. I'll alt-right click and use transform to 0 to bring it back to the skin pose. And I'll also double check and make sure that the envelopes for the lips are brought back to that same skin pose. So what you could do to save your weights out is to simply go ahead and select the model. You can go ahead and head over to advanced parameters. And then here's where you'll find save and load. So we can go ahead and save out our weights. I'll save them in a file called face_weights. And this will be found in your scenes folder. You could also add it in your export folder. But either way, we'd want to go ahead and save this file out so we can always get back to our work. And again, you'll find that this saves you a lot of time in the skinning process. So I'll go ahead and work on the weights in between lessons. When I come back, we'll take a look at our final weights. I'll also make sure to update the face weights file with the new weights so that you have an idea as to how to take care of each section. And in the next lesson, we're going to focus on creating our first control object. It will be a global control. We also need to address the scaling issue we have. If we were to go ahead and grab the neck bone and start scaling that, you can see how our lips do not consider the scaling of what is currently our root bone, the neck. All right, so we need to go ahead and address that. So those are some things we'll take care of in the following lesson.